Hi David, how are you?
I'm very good, Jeremy. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. Thank you for making the time. I know you're a busy man. So really exciting episode this one actually, because I've had the pleasure of spending a bit of time with you and working with you on things recently. And our space in the Western Gateway, Southwest Wales, South Coast is really hotting up. So we've got some interesting insights and a bit of a conversation about our place in the world in that, I think, and how we see the world panning out. But before we get into that, could you introduce yourself, please, David, in terms of your role and a bit about your career today?
Okay, so my name's David Merrills. I'm the Operation Director for the Southwest for MIG Group. So 40 years in the industry, from man and boy. Started as a bricklayer, worked through building large industrial warehouses for the likes of big names like Amazon and Lidl. Worked through into residential, spent a lot of time building residential units, Crest Nicholson and lots of local authorities, and built some time building some student unit apartments and things like that. So heavily changed in the industry, focusing, always looking for something different, always looking to be better than the last project, always developing new techniques. So that's what brought me to MIG Group. So I spent a certain amount of time in Germany and Austria. Across in Germany and Austria, they have the MMC stitched up a lot better than we do in the UK. They build simple, and we tend to build very hard and difficult in the UK. So bringing a few of those tricks and shortcuts across to the UK is always my prime goal. And that's why we work well with MIG Group for the forward thinking and the MMC approach.
Very good, thank you. So I've recorded a previous episode that's gone out with Steve Chudley about our OCLA approach and how we leverage BIM. And this conversation's, we want to talk about the Western Gateway, Southwest, South Wales, etc. And then we'll come on to, I think, how we've implemented the MIG Group approach with an example of our big sort of poster child project in Bristol. So I guess first of all, David, you and I have had an interesting journey in the last year, I guess, with MIG Group across Southwest Western Gateway. We went to a Western Gateway conference together, didn't we, in Cardiff, probably 6 months ago now, where there was some really interesting conversation about development across that area as kind of the Southwestern Wales equivalent of the Cambridge to Oxford Arc, as it were, or Northern Powerhouse. But perhaps the real life on the ground doesn't quite match the sort of rhetoric in terms of where we're going. So what have you found in the market, I guess, as an overview in the last 6 months, say? We've all seen the headlines, but what are you finding?
So I've found that the market is very busy, but no projects are landing, which has really impacted a lot of the local businesses across the Southwest. So order books that haven't been filled and resources being drained has sort of put a big strain on the local businesses, and unfortunately it's been the demise of quite a few businesses across the Southwest. That's left a big hole because we've still got a big build process to go through across in South Wales. I know there is extremely a lot of work in there, but no contractors to fill that space at the moment. So fortunately, with us being MIG Group and what we do, we're trying to help and assist developers and local councils come up with alternative ways, which are a lot faster and a lot cheaper to build than the traditional methods. So it's very unfortunate, but it's a nice niche for contractors coming to Southwest like the MIG Group and assist in pushing development on and delivering the targets which are required.
Because I saw, one of the key enablers here as well is, so we've had this projects moving to the right, but at the same time we've also had Brexit, resource constraints. We're getting extreme constraints with resources, people. As an industry, we've recently written a blog post, haven't we, for the Bristol Housing Federation that will go out, I think, this week, which was all about that kind of resource constraints. But even pre-pandemic, we were facing an aging population in the construction workforce. Of the 2.4 million people, I think, that work in construction in the UK, 800,000 are due to retire out in the next 18 months to 2 years now. So even with the million people that have gone home to Eastern Europe through the pandemic quietly, and the proportion of those that were in construction, we already had a resource challenge coming. So even just to stand still, the whole construction industry would need to be 33% more productive than it is in its mostly traditional guys today. And so it's a giant opportunity for mid-group and companies like us in deploying MMC, because our approach is more efficient and particularly much less resource hungry on site. So it feels like the game will come to us. But I think the other constraint for you that we've talked about, we get asked about social value a lot. Our clients are largely public sector, RPs in housing, etc. 15-20% of the scores on our tenders are social value. The slight challenge for us in MMC is there's no MMC real supply chain in your neck of the woods, is there? So from what you've found in your work.
No, that is a challenge. So we are generating jobs and opportunities for people, and people's choices have changed. So the pandemic, we've just gone through the pandemic, and the workforce, I found, have changed their outlook on work. People like in the industry, we're classed as journeymen, so guys that think nothing of jumping in a van, travelling from Nottingham and working in Southampton. Well, now people have changed, and we go, we don't want to be doing this, we want to work closer to home. So our opportunity as an MMC supplier is where the local supply chain is where we build the products. So it reduces people travelling so much, it creates a better quality of life for them. So you get a happier workforce, you get better products, you get better quality, and you get materials sourced locally. So it's engaging with local authorities to help them understand that we are creating and generating projects. But what we also do is when we create a regional job, we then locally employ everybody else around the peripherals. So sort of the ground workers, the painters, the decorators, the plasterers. We're heavily focused on centralising all the trades that we can within any specific project. The Bristol project, we've got 75% of our building workforce are local SMEs or local trades. And a lot of them are the big companies, they're small companies, which we're encouraging and bringing them in and learning them a new way of building. So we do work hand in hand closely with local authorities, and that's in a forefront when we bid a job. We'll speak to local authorities, we'll see what targets they want, how we can assist, and we'll mould our building and our schemes around the requirements of a local workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said in the article or the blog post we've done for the Bristol Housing Bunch, we touched on certainty as a key enabler for unlocking that, isn't it? And so if we continue down a path of clients procuring project by project, it really inhibits our ability to really draw out, leverage that efficiency for them. We think there's something like 20% capex savings in procuring programs of projects and bringing us in early as a proper construction integrator, because that's how our business is set up, as we described in the previous episode with Steve Chudley. So in terms of an enabler for us, if we can get clients to engage us as a construction partner across a program, then we can go and smooth out all the bumps all the way down into manufacturing, which is where there's risk and inefficiency if it's not engaged smoothly, and it can generate huge savings. So yeah, that's a key thing that we need for the future. So let's talk about the project we have in Bristol, because it's a great example of how the business goes to work, isn't it, and what we're doing in a particular region.
Yeah, so definitely the Bath Road project is quite unique. It's we call it a prototype building. It's the one-off project. A lot of the design details have to be adapted for the size of a project. So we're delivering 152 apartments, 100% affordable scheme for Bristol, which is the largest Bristol has ever seen, on a site which tapers from 40 metres wide to 10 metres wide. So it's a tiny footprint. So we tendered the project, we looked at the project, 7 other tier 1 contractors said it couldn't be developed. They couldn't get the massing and volume. So we looked at it differently with an MMC approach, which is the only way that project can be built. It's got tight constraints of the A4, which is the busiest road into Bristol, and we've also got the River Avon on the other side of us, so it is squeezed into a little plot. So by careful use and design and changing the building, trying to lift it above the river level as much as possible, and by inclusion of cantilever decks and clever use of podium structures, we've been able to extend the footprint to virtually the size of the plot. That's the only way the scheme could have been delivered, MMC. Our building is 17 stories high in one tower and no scaffolding externally. The panels come to site completely fitted with windows, mastic, fully waterproofed and balconies. So as the building climbs, it creates a sterile working environment below for the trades, which gives better quality, reduced water damage and speeds the build-up. So it's a great scheme that we're building. I've had in upwards of 150 people visit the site up to yet, tour guides. That's my second occupation is tour guide, but as you can see, I'm very passionate about the scheme. I love the way the scheme has been built. A lot of thought goes into the building of these schemes. If we hadn't built it this way, then it would have still been a podium deck, a scruffy old scrapyard that looks really run down in an upcoming area in Bristol.
And one of the key enablers was how we used BIM right at the start to be able to model the approach and solution it. It's a steep gradient site as well, isn't it? You didn't mention how the drop off down to river, so the use of BIM to be able to unlock that was important, right?
Yeah, so we've got a 50-metre level drop from Bath Road down to the early part of site. So when we land a project, we fully BIM model it so we can pick it up, look at it, tear it apart, turn it upside down. And that's where we realise the efficiencies of build and how it can be built and created. So having that tool in our pocket is invaluable. 2D drawings are great, you look at it flat, people don't understand it. And even my site team, we've had to stand there looking around with BIM model and all right, that's how it works. So that technology for us is priceless, and it helps us advise clients and local authorities that we're working with how we can bring efficiencies into buildings. So the efficiencies come with that, but also quality comes with that, because with the BIM, we're modelled down to the last socket, the last conduit, the last light fitting in every single room. So when we're pouring concrete, we can see where the light fittings go, we can see where the conduits are, we can see where the sockets are, which helps us integrate then into the concrete structures or any other structures we choose to use. So that when we come to do the finishing works, it reduces the internal finishes. So that minute detailing helps putting concrete in the ground to the completion of a building. Then once it's completed, that BIM model stays with this building. Our clients then get this BIM model. And the BIM model is then linked to certain QR codes on products where we can then click on, and then it'll spit out exactly what the product is, the manufacturer, the make of year, if it's still in warranty, if it's still got guarantees, and most importantly, where can you buy one next? So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of people rummaging through a cupboard of O&Ms and bits of paper. And it speeds the process up, and it gives people cost certainty as well. So it's a great full-rounded tool, not just for modelling, not just for building, but for clients moving forward. And we see that as a big plus with our business, because I don't know of any other contractor that offers this service.
No, it's always talked about as kind of a future state thing in the distance, whereas it's kind of our here and now. Because didn't you even got QR codes on all of the materials and elements of the building from manufacture through transport onto site, so you know where everything is in the life cycle as well. So logistically, that's because your site was so constrained, that was really critical, wasn't it?
It was very, very much so. So our concrete is made across in Ireland, and taking somebody to Ireland and sitting in their factory just to watch every process is a very difficult undertaking. So we have a QR code which is generated at the beginning of the process, and every quality document then is appended to the QR code, as well as stage check photographs. So every stage I can just log on to Snagger or one of our platforms, and then I can look where the panel is. I can look and I can ring them up, say, that concrete doesn't look right in there, or that steel, is that the right steel in that bay? That gives me the ability to have real-time vision of what stage in the process our panels are. When it comes to site, then the site manager are all equipped with iPads, and they scan the QR code and they go, yep, all the checks have been done. No checks have been done, it hasn't gone through the process, then it stays on the lorry and goes back to Ireland until it's properly being certified. So nothing gets installed in that building that we haven't had 100% visibility and quality check on, which is something on traditional build you can never ever get. Because every operative is different. He lays a brick to a different way, the fire stoppers do it a different way, because that's just human nature. So we create incredibly robust buildings and structures with long-term use and longevity of the building in mind from day one. And this enables us to do it.
Absolutely, and something we've not shouted about on this project so far, because it's kind of come about, is that it's net zero in operation as well, isn't it? Through the
That's right. So by the construction details of concrete, it is inherently very, very airtight and thermally efficient. So a normal building of this size, and for residential, we'd be looking at an air test of 3 metre cube per hour, or to 5. So 5 is a norm, which is a good air test result. So we've just tested one of our blocks on Bath Road, and we've got a 0.6. So that is a 0.6, which is equivalent to a passive house status. So what this means to everybody is that your building in summer stays cool, but in winter it retains the heat. So you need very little heating systems to actually keep the building working. So it stays in its own microclimate, really. So in old buildings, or even traditional buildings we're building now, you get hot and cold phases where the cold will come in, you have to put heating in to warm it up, that warms the fabric up, but then it's dispersed very quickly through the external envelope. But our construction method is so robust with the concrete, the insulation and second layer of concrete, that it traps that heat in. But in summer, you get good cross-flow air ventilation through your apartment, and with the concrete being present, it keeps it cooler. So it's the best of both worlds. It's an absolute fantastic product, and for creating a nice space for people to live in, it's the ultimate material. Because that's what we're ultimately looking for. We're looking for buildings that are cheap to run, so we remove the fuel poverty problems people have. We also look for buildings that are a nice place to live and you want to live. And that's it, first and foremost in our thoughts, is where things are designed, where things are easy for people to use, and actually where do you want to live, rather than a design statement that says, right, the outside looks very nice, but inside it's really cramped and dark and claustrophobic. So that's our ethos, and we push it out on every single scheme. So we win a project, we take it back to the BIM team, we take it all apart, and then in a normal tender process we'll do a compliant bid, but then we'll say, oh, by the way, we think that you should be doing it this way because it'll give you greater efficiencies in the building and create better spaces for people to live and where people want to live, and reduce maintenance.
I know we should touch on, I think we talked about it in the episode with Mr. Chudley, but we have heavily over-engineered our BIM capabilities. So we've got something between 5 and 10 times the scale of BIM resources compared to a business or a business unit in a bigger constructor of our size, and it's because we've seen it as an enabler to value for us and for our clients, more importantly, really. So we're able to solution, using our MMC kit of parts, much more effective solutions for clients very, very quickly, and that really differentiates. So I know that's been really powerful for your project. So thank you for that, David. So we should touch on the other thing that you and I are talking about quite a lot at the moment, which I forgot to mention in our prep actually, but we have got on the Southern Construction Framework's residential framework recently, and we've had our first tender that we're just going through the throes of, which came very early. I know you're just getting into, you're acting as the framework manager for Mid Group, because we saw it as important, having someone senior engaged day to day with them, because it's going to be, an important conduit for our business moving forwards. It's our first significant framework as opposed to a DPS as a business in our journey maturing the business, which is sort of beyond startup now into growing pains, I guess, or maturity. And so we'll probably have an episode on the framework, actually, or frameworks more generally, and we've already spoken to FCF about one of their people coming on. But that's a really exciting opportunity, isn't it, for the not just the Western Gateway Southwest, but London and the Southeast as well.
Very much so, very much so. It's quite an exciting time. So we have regular meetings with the SCF, and their pipeline of work is quite large. They've done a lot of work with local authorities who haven't got a solution. They need houses, but they don't know what they need. They don't know what they want. So we work closely with those guys as enablers, and we can suggest things with our experience and our technologies. We can show people other things that normal contracts won't go down that line on. So it's great.
Yeah, well, it's a great. We all know, I think, that being successful with frameworks is all about taking work to the framework, actually, or clients to the framework. So we'll certainly be doing that with some of our clients in the coming months. But clients can rest assured, we've got public sector clients can rest assured we've got a procurement route now for residential and some other asset types within that framework that they can talk to us about. So please do get in touch about that. Just one last podcasty gimmick bit, Dave. What's been your biggest highlight, I guess, with your time with Midgroup so far? What's been the most exciting bit?
Biggest highlight is probably spending a year designing a building and having thousands and thousands of hours of workshops and convincing people I've got a crazy idea that this is going to work, and actually seeing it land and put together and actually seeing it come out the ground. I spoke to a lot of architects and engineers in 2020, told them my vision, what we were doing. I could see they were looking really glazed at me, going, yeah, okay, whatever. 2021, when we started landing it, the guys were actually ringing me up saying, Dave, you're actually doing this. I said, yeah, I told you I would. And it's not just me, I say it's our team. The whole team has the same ethos, the whole team buys into this project. And that's what you need with this sort of project. An MMC approach, you need people to buy in and think out the box and not sit there going, well, I've always done it this way. You need to forget that bit. You need to forget that. You need to start again and think, well, how can I make this better? How can we improve? So to see it coming out the ground and see it nearly completed is my biggest high spot within Mid over the last year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, having worked with a number of contractors, the MMC bit is in their bid process or solution process is always at the end. Can we do something different once they've already thought through how they're going to build the job? Whereas it's first point of principle for us with our kit of parts and other engagement with the supply chain is what's the MMC approach to delivering this, certainly faster, if not for the same money, quite possibly cheaper. And the great bit with your project, MMC tends to get painted as being a cookie cutter approach, which isn't actually the case with our kit of parts. But certainly standardization is helpful, and procuring programs is helpful. But Bath Road has proven that you can use MMC to unlock a very individual project with a hybrid approach of traditional techniques lower down and MMC proper on top with precast panels. So well done, mate. It's a great project to walk around. I'm coming in a couple of weeks, aren't I, with SCF for a site visit, so look forward to wandering about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So and in future episodes we've got some architects joining me for our next episode, actually, to talk about procurement of MMC and how that works or doesn't and should work. So look forward to that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.